Hello, everybody. We're back again for another episode, and we have Clint from CSTuned on today, and then we also have Teter back for episode again from Teter Automotive. Both two sponsors for our group that we love, that they support us, and we try to support them. Very happy to have them on today. Also, everybody knows Dave, Simply Subaru's out in Colorado. As you know, it is the Wave by Super Mechanics. Teter and Clint, how did you guys come together? How did you guys meet each other and kind of form this business relationship that you guys have?
The story is I ended up buying my first standalone for my car from Clint here at CSTuned. And, he had a business partner at the time that he's no longer with. But he ended up, the computer actually popped up out of the box. So they had to return it. So they ended up coming to my shop directly to come pick it up, and we got me a new one, and that was pretty much it. So nothing really.
Yeah, like at the time, I had no idea about standalones at all. I was just getting into it too. And Trent's obviously has always been a big name, so it was like, oh, cool, we get to go to the shop and meet this guy that I've heard so much about. And lo and behold, it kind of became what it is now. Not without a lot of hard work and stuff in between, but
and the entire shop's just kind of like a family now. I mean, everybody's friends almost outside the shop most part, and
it's so busy at the shop that people are really in the office. Like our social media guys always filming, our machine shop is always busy, like the dyno's spinning pretty much every day. Like everything is constantly integrated. There's no separation. Like anybody can be helping out at anything at any given point. It's a really cool place to work.
Have you guys had any customers that have really messed up the process, either putting in a wrong map or cold launches or not breaking the car in, or just, do not follow instructions? We
had a guy installing a Holtec, ECU on a big turbo car that we took over from another shop. I mean, they just basic stuff where, they had the battery cables on next to the sharp edge, or we're up through all the battery cables, just little things like that, all the way to, we had a Chrysler 300, and we put on a dyno, he forgot to put one of the engine plugs inside the engine, on the engine block. So we're seeing probably what happened with that. So that's in a million pieces at our shop, or we're going to be fixing that. I can't even explain. There's so many, anywhere from boost controllers installed incorrectly to things not plugged in at all. Cars that, hey, I just need a tune to. Oh, it was the one, I know I had a video I made one that came in. He said,
wouldn't idle or whatever.
No, there's the one that came in missing the O2 sensor. It just wasn't
that's right.
At all. And
he's missing something.
Yeah, he was just missing an O2 sensor entirely. Didn't put it in at all. And that came from a shop too. That doesn't matter.
Oh my God.
Shop.
My favorite is cars that come in and they're asking you to check out a problem, but they don't tell you the very pertinent information of, hey, I did this thing and now it's not working. They're just kind of they'll figure it out.
As far as my perspective on that, I'm very lucky because anytime that I'm on the dyno, the car's already been completely gone through by Trent's team. They've already smoke tested. They've already checked just as a part of their pre-dyno inspection. So it's very, very seldom that I'll get on the dyno and the car won't work, because if they check stuff out and something's wrong, we won't tune it. The 300 that was missing a critical engine plug. I just won't even get started on it.
We sent a car off. We had it fully built, tuned the car was ready to go. Customer picked it up, and sure enough, I think he picked it up on a Thursday. On Friday, we get a call at 5:00. Car's coming back on a tow truck. We're just so we get the car back and we start going through everything. And sure enough, the brand new aftermarket map sensor decided to go bad. The car thinks it's on top of Mount Kilimanjaro. This car thinks it's at 30,000 feet. We have a problem here.
It's almost like that sensor's important, right?
Yeah, almost exactly.
Now, I'm curious on what both of your takes are on the FA platform itself. The EJ platform just has so much more testing behind it, so much more proven, And now we're starting to see things that are really interesting coming out of the EJ platform. What do you guys think on which block is your favorite, and what do you guys think reliability wise is the better option?
I am personally a fan of the EJ over the FA. That is just my personal opinion and preference. As far as like the actual internal components of the motor, I'm a more fan of the EJ, especially the cylinder heads. My opinion, the EJs just have less stuff going on, and the FAs have a lot more stuff going on and more likely things to fail. I'm not a big fan of lash caps compared to just a old overhead bucket design, especially for the DLC treated buckets now. Those are really nice. It's just the FA has more things to fail, and when the FA fails, it's a lot more expensive to build than just an EJ.
That's very true.
Yeah, so like average everyday consumer, if they want to start modifying their car, because eventually Subaru is going to blow up, it's going to break. It's just how they are. I would go an EJ route over an FA personally. Just like I've had a lot of guys ask me like, "Hey, I want to buy Subaru to build and beat the shit out of it." I'm like, get an older STI.
Yeah.
Don't get a new VA WRX because they're newer. I would get an older STI, beat the shit out of it. It'll be cheaper to build. More parts. Well, there's plenty of parts for the FAs now, but they're cheaper. I mean, an oil pump for an EJ, a JDM 12 millimeter pump, those for $150 at least at my cost. Oil pump for an FA was $1,000-$1,200 now or something like that for the whole front cover.
Yeah,
it's an obnoxious amount.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I'm a bigger fan of EJ. Maybe that's just because I've worked with them a lot more or longer than FAs. But I don't know what Subaru is really thinking with the FA design. I don't really think they improved on much. That's just my opinion.
But then you also have the labor time too to build an F motor in general.
Yeah, that
from the amount of time between cam carriers, which some of the EJs had technical, I don't know if you want to call them cam carriers, but not really the same as the F motors. And then you also have, I'll agree with you in a lot of ways about the upper, when it comes to the upper oil pan. I've seen countless motors fail because the upper oil pan O-rings are causing oil and coolant to mix. And it's just a terrible design, in my opinion, in a lot of ways.
Another thing too, like if you want to have like someone that's a little newer to the mechanic world or building motors, EJ is something relatively, it's different, but something someone can figure out. I would not put a beginner technician on an F series motor. Just absolutely not. It's way too expensive for the fuck up, and it's too complicated. There's too many O-rings, RTD spots. It's just for a beginner person, I wouldn't do it. Engine reseals and F series motor is like the number one thing to do. And no matter what they do, the things still fucking leak. And it's not like they're pouring oil out, but there's gonna be like a wet spot here, sped hot. Nothing you can do. They just leak. And it's like, I also have some customers that, it's like I have a little wet spot here. I'm like, if I take it apart, try to already make it worse. Just as long as it's not hissing and leaving puddles on your floor, or spilling oil anywhere, you're fine. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but unfortunately, that's where the platform is going. So we get used to it.
In my personal vehicle is an FA20, and I that's what I learned how to tune on. Like I owe all of my knowledge and everything where I'm at now because of the FA20. It wasn't until a couple of years after that I actually tuned my first EJ, and I immediately just liked them more. From a tuning perspective, they are a little bit more complicated. You have all the different port injector settings. You have a lot more development when it comes to the software and what's available for tuning. The FA20 is a bit more simple. I wouldn't say it's like the most approachable. Honestly, the FA24, that comes in the newer DIT Subaru WRXs, is like that's probably one of the most approachable. It doesn't vary too much from the FA20 from a tuning perspective, but the way that boost control essentially learns itself based on a wastegate position with the electronic wastegate it's really intuitive, and once you kind of have it set up properly, it works really well. And honestly, someone who's just kind of getting into tuning cars and learning, they could use something like the Atlas program, which is currently free for people to download, and they can get started messing with their FA24 and their DIT WRX and have a good time with relatively low risk. But that being said, I'm kind of with Trent. I do think the EJs, even just from like a feel perspective, they have an indescribable feeling when you drive them. regardless of it, if it's a VA or a GC or a GD or a GR, even they all have their own little quirks like any platform, but the EJs just feel fantastic. When they're not dialed in properly, you can tell because they feel just like absolute dog water. But with a properly set up EJ with the right parts and good injectors and a properly sized turbo for the setup, there's really nothing better from a driving perspective.
There's something to be said too about the weight of those cars. Like every car that has an EJ in it, they're light and they feel like go-karts. And then the second they got the FA, they built the cars more to be like daily driven sedans. And now they're just heavy and, they don't give that same jolt when you hit the gas pedal. I feel like, with my car, I have a 19 WRX, and first thing I did was put Brembos on it and put some bigger wheels. And I took the spare out of the trunk and just threw it across my garage because I was like, I do not want any excess weight in this thing. And
the heart of the original Subaru stuff is kind of starting to peter out, I feel like.
You know what? It is sad because I remember, I grew up on Route 80 out here, and I just feel like everywhere you went at, like, even as soon as like 10 years ago, there was just GD bodies all over the road. There was GCs every once in a while. And it's like now you get on the highway and it's like nothing, like just dead. There's like almost nobody. And when you go to something like Boxerfest, it just almost brings it all back. And you start to remember like, oh crap, there are this many on the road. Like, holy shit. You see them passing you on the way there and stuff. It's insane.
When they did a study about, young kids and what cars excite them and what they excited about driving, get their license, they're like, no, I'll just Uber everywhere. Or I'll have cars drive me everywhere. And it's like, we have to have all the more appreciation for, and it's upcoming, but, an event like SEMA, and rather an organization, specifically like SEMA, that's really fighting for the automotive aftermarket community. I think companies like Cobb are doing everything they can in some ways, with the current landscape shifting very dramatically, where okay, they could have just closed their doors and said, that's it. But there's a lot of great products that they offer and a lot of great innovation that they have, I think, left.
We have such an influx now of influencer culture. And I say that with like quotation marks around the word influencer, but there's a lot of battles to be fought. I mean, everything from just the little takeovers that are happening in intersections across the country to like full scale stuff, like with what happened at Gatlinburg. It's like, these companies they really are fighting against the current more or less. And it sucks because we are sort of getting drowned out as far as our support. What we do to try and support these companies almost gets lost in a sea of clout chasing. And we see that even on a much smaller scale from when someone comes in for a dyno tune and they want the car to make this number because they want to brag about it. Safer version of that same clout culture, but it is clout culture nonetheless. It's something I try to tell a lot of people, like if I tune your car and it makes 599 wheel horsepower, do you want me to turn it up and like try and hit that number, even if it means potentially you'll be going home on a flatbed? So it's just, everywhere you turn, there's going to be this type of new culture that's sort of growing and manifesting almost like a disease or like an epidemic. And eventually, as much as it sucks to say it, we are going to lose that battle eventually. And it's only going to be when things change. Yeah, like a dyno is not a tool to give you bragging rights. It's a tool to help you understand where you're starting versus where you're ending. It helps you understand if you are having torque tips or if you are, which also is subjective, by the way, because the way you strap a car, the amount of air pressure in the tires, the humidity in the surrounding air, how hot it is. Sometimes in our dyno cell, I'm sitting in a puddle of sweat because it's 100 degrees in the shop. And the car's not going to be happy, just like I'm not happy sitting there sweating, So people, they get so caught up in that. And I think a big thing, for anyone who ends up listening to this, it's like, if you're getting ready to go to the dyno, just let the process do what the process does. Tool to help you and your tuner understand how far you've come from your baseline. It is nothing more. It is nothing less. And especially for people who are using the dyno or going in for a tune, like, make sure that you don't let a number dictate the way you feel about the car. When the car comes off the dyno and you take it out on the road and you test it, let that feeling control how you feel about the car. Like Trent and I, any car that comes in the shop, and like you said, asking the customer, what do you want out of the car? That ends up sort of almost being a double-edged sword, though, because everyone always says the same thing. They say, I want it to be fast and reliable. And it's like, okay, well, how fast or how reliable? And also, like you said, Trent, like how much you trying to spend? Because you can't have everything. And people who always say like, oh, I just want it to be reliable, do it conservative. Those are always the people who are saying at the end, like, oh, it only made this much power. So it really is a double-edged sword on that.
And then the problem is people don't understand what is fast. So there's our recent customer that we both know. The car made was like 400 something, high fours or something. I'll remember exactly.
Yeah, like 460 something.
Yeah, and he was so gung ho on making 600. He did. You didn't come close, 600. He got in the car, took for a drive, and he's like, holy fuck. He's like, this thing cannot be making 470. Like, oh my God, this thing has to be making so much more horsepower than this. Your dyno has to be wrong. Like, no, that's what 470 wheel horsepower in an all-wheel drive car actually feels like.
And now, it's on a dyno jet too, so that might even be, they say those quote-unquote read high.
Their expectations of fast is so, I think, in my opinion, wrong based off of social media and their influences on social media, because they're chasing a number. I'm like, just chase on what's actually fast. I'm like, a 10-second car is still pretty freaking fast. An 11-second car, if you're running a low 11, it's still a fast car, and people don't, oh, you're only running 11, oh, you're only making 500. I'm like, how about you take a passenger seat and go on a 500 horsepower all-wheel drive Subaru or an Evo and see how it actually feels.
The tuner, as long as they're competent, isn't going to be the person who decides ultimately how much power potential a setup has. That's going to be down to the airflow, down to the design of the engine, down to the components, the strength of them, the transmission, everything. The tuner is going to is going to try and find that optimal point, right? Every tuner, at least if they know what they're doing, is going to ultimately come to that same end goal, right? So, a lot of times, you got to make sure that your setup's correct, your fuel's correct, everything that you need to make the power is there. You're not going to run out of turbo. You're not going to run out of injector. And once all that is settled, then you can talk about a realistic goal.
Getting into tuning is a very tough industry. I think it's something that you have to establish yourself, which in a lot of businesses, right? Like if you open up a mechanic shop, yes, you do have to establish yourself, but at the same time, people need their car fixed, and a lot of that is dictated by price. I feel like with tuning, it doesn't, like, the price matters, but like a lot of it comes down to the name. Everybody in the community knows when they see a JR Tune sticker, they know who that is. I think now CSTuned, I mean, I know who you are. I've seen you at Boxer Fest. I've seen you all over social media. Like, your name obviously carries a lot of weight in the Subaru mechanics group, as people always blow up the posts when you make one. And there's been nothing but great feedback on that.
From every aspect of these cars, like, we're not just putting stuff out to give it to someone for the sake of making a sale. Like, and I know it sounds cliche, but we really are putting like our heart and soul into this stuff. I mean, like, when you see the people like Kim and Trent who are building these motors and doing the machine work, like, this stuff takes a lot of time and a lot of scrutiny. And we've had opportunities where we can schedule, 3-4 people for dyno tuning in a day, and we choose not to, because Trent and I, as Teter Automotive goes from a tuning perspective, we really like to spend an hour or two with each car on drivability alone. So before the car even hits the dyno and does pulls, we make sure that like all of the transient throttle response feels good. The car takes off from stoplights well. It doesn't have any surging or bucking or bogging. It gets as good fuel economy as possible. And, these are all things that you simply cannot do if you're just putting a car in a dyno and doing pulls. Like, we're really trying our best to, because we have a very awesome customer base for the most part, and we want to give them all that we can.
How do you handle the E85 conversation? Because I feel like that's something in the tuning world that a lot of people in their head think that they need to run E85, or they think that that's where they're going to make their big power. But I feel like that's probably a conversation you have to have with them. Like, hey, if we go down this road, you are going to need to find E85. Like, this isn't, it's not something that's crazy readily available. And, I'm just curious how you navigate that.
From a building perspective, E85, obviously you're going to require upgrades in most cases to your fuel system components. You're going to need a sending unit that can not only flow the volume you need, but is also compatible with alcohol because it is corrosive by nature. Same goes for your injectors. And if you're putting a bigger pump in injectors, especially for the EJ guys, you're going to need some sort of fuel pressure regulation system to make sure that you have steady and constant pressure where it needs to be. These are all things a lot of people don't consider when they talk about going to E85. They think they can just toss it in there, maybe throw on a flex fuel kit because that's what someone like Cobb tells them to do, and then they're good to go. And a lot of times that's not the case. So the flex fuel conversation, it typically goes one of two ways. The first way is you have someone that comes in, they maybe don't understand what flex fuel is or what ethanol in and of itself does inside of your engine, but they have a realistic budget in mind and they don't mind putting money towards parts to do it safely. And then you might have other people who say, oh, my buddy with his Evo is running however much horsepower on E85, so I want to run E85. And then when you kind of break down the cost and the price of all that, they say, well, what can we do on pump gas instead?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess for anyone that doesn't know, just a quick breakdown of E85 is the biggest thing it does is it burns cooler. So what that means is that the actual flame inside of your cylinders is colder, and when the air fuel mixture inside of your engine is colder, it is more resistant to detonation. So E85 in and of itself has a much higher effective octane rating than pump gas. So where you're really making your power is you're making it on being able to run more cylinder pressure in the form of more boost, and also being able to run a leaner air fuel mixture, because since it's cooler inside the cylinder, you don't have to run a bunch more fuel in the form of a richer air fuel ratio just to cool off the engine. And then also a big power gain is from advancing your spark timing. This is something that people are very wary of, especially tuners when they're starting, because advancing spark is the quickest way to create knock or detonation in an engine and cause something like a ringland to blow out or causing excess wear on bearings and stuff like that. So, E85 just allows you to do all those things more or less safely. And this is a big if, but if your fuel system is capable of flowing that volume. Because, E85 itself is going to require about 130% of the volume that pump gas will to be able to run the same air fuel ratio. So if you're already at 80-90% duty cycle on those injectors on pump gas, you're going to theoretically be at 120 130 on E85, and that's not going to work for obvious reasons. So even in like these Subaru cars, they can run the same, like you said, up to about E30 without any type of fuel system modifications. We say this mostly for the DIT cars because they have a bit more headroom when it comes to what their injectors can flow and all of that. But the only real downside is if you start doing that without a tune to compensate for that fuel delivery, you will start to run a bit lean, especially at wide open throttle, because like I said, you're going to be requiring at E30 about 109% or thereabouts more fuel volume that your system is just not delivering because it doesn't know to deliver it. I just want to touch on that because that's an interesting topic. And a lot of people with stock cars like 2015 to 20 or even up to the newest date direct injection Subarus can pretty much run up to an E30 blend, maybe like E25 or so super safely on a completely stock car and have a good time. Ethanol just chemically does absorb water over time. Yeah. Whereas just your basic petrol just doesn't. I mean, it does, but to a much smaller extent. So it's kind of something, if you're going to be storing a car, to make sure, if it is on E85, either drain the tank out or I'm sure they have like ethanol stabilizers and stuff like that. But E85 definitely does have a shelf life. Fun fact about E85 actually is way back in the day when the Department of Energy first started using ethanol in fueling stations, it was straight up E100. But people were literally dumping it into jugs and drinking it because it was actually potable. So the reason they blended it down to E85 is because they needed to add something in there to make it not drinkable.
That's so bad.
But no, about like what you said with flex fuel, I do have kind of a controversial topic because a lot of companies, have made sort of flex fuel kits kind of the go-to component for your average enthusiast. And it is great in the sense that, it kind of lets you be a little bit, I don't want to say like stupid, but I would say like it allows you to be a bit
ambidextrous
it allows you to be ignorant when you're fueling up your car because you don't have to measure anything. You don't have to care. You can just put whatever, giggle juice you want in your car and it should automatically correct for it. And if everything's set up well, it does. The reason why I would never personally run flex fuel in any of my personal cars is because I'm sure you guys are familiar with like Boeing, right? How they had that sensor on the outside of the plane. That one sensor basically dictated everything that the autopilot system did. And then when that one sensor had an issue, the whole plane would fall out of the sky. The same thing happens and can happen with flex fuel on these cars because basically everything that your car does, whether it's fuel delivery, spark advance, the amount of boost you're running, all of that is based on input from one sensor, ethanol sensor. Keep in mind, a lot of these people, they're using the General Motors ethanol sensors and they're very reliable, but you also have this aftermarket flex fuel kit that's using, whatever technology to communicate that sensor to your powertrain module. If any one of those components has an issue or experiences some type of failure, your car is instantly going into some sort of, I don't know what's going on mode. People send polls where their ethanol sensor voltage is spiking between, 3 and 4 volts during a poll. And it's setting up the stage for a kaboom moment.
I would never run flex fuel on my personal cars. I personally don't even run 93 on any of my performance cars. I just do strictly 85 because I know I beat shit out of them. So,
see, to me, I'm more in the mindset of like, I would trust finding a charging station before trusting I'm going to find E85 somewhere. E85 in New Jersey, you would think it would be everywhere, but it's not. We're literally the Garden State. There's corn here. Like, you would think that there'd be a lot. And it's like you go every pump and it's like you never see it. And I just always think to myself, like, why would I run an E85 on a car that I'm going to drive every day if I can't find it? I'd rather have a race car that I know I'll go get the E85 if I'm going to run it or whatever and just do it that way. But, for me, like my daily, there's no way I would mess with the E85.
A big solution that we've kind of been implementing for a lot of customers who are interested in it is like we can do this with, for example, when we're using like EcuTech for our tuning software, is we can actually set up a flex fuel tune, but the ethanol content that the powertrain module sees is based on something that you can physically adjust with like a slider on EcuTech's mobile app. So let's say you have an ethanol sensor in your car that's reading, 45%. You go into the app, you move the slider over to 45%, and now it's going to run what a flex fuel tune would if it was reading that same 45%. The benefit of that is if the sensor has an issue or something happens, and adjusted the slider, like the slider is still where it is, you'll know because you'll be looking at your sensor. You'll be like, I just filled up. Why is it bouncing from 10 to 90%? It's another reason. I mean, we're thankful for the innovations that company does with their software. It's insane.
I just wanted to kind of jump into this whole Slammedenuff situation.
Oh boy.
Teter, last time you were on, we talked a lot about the takeover kids. I know it's something that you've had opinions on as well as most of us. It's crazy what goes on every day in the streets and what these people do. And like, it's insane. It really is. And honestly, I think this is just the end of the line. You know, you got vendors that are already struggling to make it out to these events. They're dumping a ton of money to be there. You know, Dave and I went to Boxerfest. You know, they hook us up with our vendor spot. And even then, Dave and I are spending a ton of money to make it out there, to get all the stuff together. Like, it's a lot. And Boxerfest is so pure. It's great every year. There's like, you never hear of any craziness like this. But it's like, is it a matter of time? Is this something that's even avoidable? Is it just the fact that it takes one, you know, group of shitty kids to show up and just totally ruin everything that's been built for years? And like,
all it takes. So Takeover, they're ruining the car. That's my opinion. I really will be completely public with that. I don't give a shit. You know, Takeovers that ruin the car scene. They're going to be the death of the car scene, and they simply need to stop. You know, these Takeover kids are not car enthusiasts. They're simply idiots that want to go spin and do donuts and do stupid shit on social media to make their social medias pop off. You know, it's like there's no reason to sit there and do donuts on a charger and shoot fireworks out of the charger in the middle of parking lot. And then the problem is the police don't understand the difference between a car enthusiast and a Takeover kid. You don't know the difference. They see car with loud exhaust, they assume we're all the same. And that's the problem.
Someone can buy a Tesla Plaid and do a sub 10-second quarter mile. That's insane. Yeah. Their kids in the back seat. You know what I mean? The landscape has changed dramatically. We're in a rare space. Being in the Subarus, we're not fully encompassed into all of that as much.
That's kind of the thing is, I think social media is taking over every industry in certain areas, and you're getting the bad apples that are sticking out, all based off of social media and how much likes and views and attention you can get.
So this is a group that I'm in called Drift PA-OHNY. So, you know, it's a drift community for PA, Ohio, New York, for Lake Erie. And after the whole Slammedenuff event, they posted that somebody left the drift event where they were drifting in an event that is sanctioned, something that's totally legal and fine. They left there, they went downtown, and they started doing takeover stuff in the main intersection in town. So, you know, it's just crazy. This just happened. You know, this is yesterday. This was posted that I saw it. And literally all the comments was everybody being like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe that this is happening. And like, you were just at the drift event. You're ruining it for everybody. And then they had to put out this whole memo here, basically saying that regarding the actions, 2 competitors went downtown and basically did takeover activities, and that they do not condone it. And, you know, they even noted which drivers it was and who did it and everything like that. So this to me is like, the people are not learning. They see everything that happened at Slammedenuff, and then they just go out and they do it again. When are they going to learn that like they're going to ruin the whole track for everybody?
Big argument that people have is they say, well, you're not giving us enough outlets to do what we want to do safely. But here's an example of where there's a station or a sanctioned event literally allowing you to do exactly what you're complaining about not being allowed to do. And then even now that they've given that to you, you still disrespect that, I guess, that privilege of having that event by going out and doing the same thing. So that's what I was saying earlier about it being an uphill battle, as it truly is. No matter how much you give and give, the opposition will take, and they will take until there's nothing left to take, because they've taken everything good away from us in our community.
And people want what they can't have. It's as simple as that. And they're chasing a dopamine high.
Yeah.
And whatever dopamine high they can get, and they want to have what they can't have.
And what's annoying is that the amount of steps you have to take to keep moving forward on an event like Boxerfest. You have to get the police involved. You have to make sure that you're paying for all the permits. You got to make sure that all your boxes are checked, because you know that even if you go 15 steps in the right direction, all it takes is one idiot to do something stupid, and now you are 15 steps back, and now they're canceling the event. They're sending people home, and all the money that you spent and all the boxes that you checked now mean nothing, because now the town hates this event because of one idiot who did something stupid, you know? And it's like, I really wish that local government would be more involved in this stuff, and not in the sense of like, screw it, the easiest thing to do is get rid of racetracks and ban all of these events.
We have to make sure that we go to meetings, Go to your local, meetings when they're talking about closing racetracks. Go, show up, represent, make your voices heard, make it so they actually understand what it means when they're closing down these racetracks that are basically safe havens for us.
I'm curious how this affects you and your business. Are you guys altering your approach to certain things because of these events and how things are panning out?
Absolutely. Trent, I know, has already been fighting a lot. We've had some other people who we're not associated with who've been doing burnouts and stuff like that on the same street that our shop is. And of course, because we're the only car shop that's located there, all eyes are basically on us at this point. And by us, I mean pretty much on Trent, because he's, the owner of that shop. So it's definitely affecting us negatively.
It really is like at the detriment of the people that follow the rules and the people that do things the right way. They're the ones who get screwed on this, because you plan this awesome day for them. You have all this stuff planned, and then it all gets canceled because of the people that aren't even really good customers, aren't even really enthusiasts.
I think it's up to us as the passionate automotive enthusiast to help guide these people along. It's hiring young guys that don't have bad habits. Maybe they're young, dumb, and they make stupid mistakes. But you know what? I put underglow lights with neon tubes on a Corolla because, you know what? I watched the Fast and Furious when I was in high school. That was the thing, And so I think that we have to, in some capacity, take some of these misguided souls, if you will, under our wing. There's a level of responsibility, I think, that falls on all of us in the automotive community to say, you know what? A, this doesn't represent us, but B, come here, let me teach you how it's done.
You're right. I think it does come down to us, like we named the podcast after the Wave, right? The Subaru Wave that everybody has done forever. And now all I hear is that nobody waves anybody. Nobody is really willing to talk to a stranger or invite them to come out for a Subaru drive, or,
yep,
hey, we got a local meet that we go to, you should come, And so now we're ending up with what feels like, in my opinion, is these lost kids who they can't find a community they fit in with. The Subaru community has kind of turned its back on its own people for the most part, outside of like the people that go to Boxer Fest and stuff like that. But like locally, right, all I hear is that people don't wave to each other. They don't, there are no more meetups anymore. And it's like the only communities that are meeting up are takeover kids, They're meeting in the parking lots at night, and they're out there doing whatever. Whereas like people like, Dave and I are going to Cars and Coffee, and there's like this weird separation where it feels like the kids that used to meet up at night in the local parking lots used to be the kids that would also go to Cars and Coffee and like would be about the community. But now it feels like this group of kids has kind of turned, and now there's like this divide between like the purist and like the whatevers, It's just
and I don't mean to blame us as enthusiasts, but we have to ultimately self-reflect at a certain point. We have a responsibility to change it, and you know what? Part of that has fostered that takeover mentality, in my humble opinion, is gatekeeping, and I do not condone or believe in gatekeeping. It's no. Let me show you the way. Let me educate you. Let me not ridicule you and make you feel stupid in a sea of fucking car people. And guess what? That guy's never going to come back. And guess what? When he does, he might come back in a Dodge Charger because, yeah, he can afford it and go, I'm faster than you now. He doesn't know how to handle it. We've all seen that. But, yeah, he's just trying to gain acceptance somewhere. And I think that we have to ultimately do our responsible parts. And again, take those young kids under our wing, in some capacity.
Online, there's a super lot of gatekeeping. You'll see people who have maybe they're just getting started and they're asking a question about something online, which is perfectly fine. and they'll be met with responses like, well, have you tried Google, or have you done this or that? And it's like, there is a lot of gatekeeping online. I've done it a couple of times. I won't say I'm blameless, but I have my thing where if someone asks a question about why is my, access port showing me this number or whatever, and my response is always, well, go ask your tuner. Like there is some obvious joke underlying joking tones there, but a lot of times, if people ask like a genuine question, there's a lot of people, myself and Trent included, who will try to get in there and try to offer whatever advice we can. Obviously it's going to be to a certain extent, right? Because you can't sit there on Facebook for 4 hours trying to help someone figure something out over a comment section, But the gatekeeping really does need to stop. Like we need to go back to the NASIOC days and the IWSTI forum days where, people could genuinely ask a question about like, hey, I'm seeing this on my, scan tool, my oxygen sensors doing this weird up and down thing. Like, has anybody experienced this? And then someone can come by and say, oh, that's just your car doing its typical emissions test for the oxygen sensor. Like, you don't have to worry about it. You're okay.
People used to know who these people were. There are so many names on NASIOC that if you ask some of the older community, they'd be like, oh my gosh, that guy's a legend. Oh, I've seen all of his posts on NASIOC. Like, what a build or whatever. And like, that's what the community was built on. But I almost feel like now we're at the point where it's like too much is too much. Like now people are asking ChatGPT for answers because they don't want the rejection of the people in the community turning on them. Or they don't want to feel like they're asking too stupid of a question or whatever, or, they are just kind of getting away from like, social media as a whole, just because of like, again, the whole reason I started Subaru Mechanics was because people had questions and their questions weren't getting answered. NASIOC took too long. Yeah. You have to wait a month for a response. Facebook was just getting like pounded down with pictures of cars and all this other crap. And so I was like, I'm going to make a safe haven for people to ask a question, get it answered. It's not going to just end up pushed down by all these other posts. I was curious, you and Teter, what is your take on trash talk in the automotive / Subaru community? Do you win points by calling people out and racing them? What are the consequences to backing out of that? Things of that nature.
I'm personally not a fan of trash talking other shops. Racer to racer, that's a different story. In my opinion, it's very healthy for competition.
I don't see it a whole lot in the Subaru community. We used to back in the day, especially in the Midwest. We used to have 2 different Subaru groups for the Chicagoland area. It used to be just one giant group, and then the 2 main shops in the area sort of started trash talking each other, and then it became 2 separate Facebook forums, one where, I guess, quote unquote, like dong riders from each shop would go join whichever group. And it just divided the community. We all do a good job. There's way more than enough pieces of pie to go around for everybody. Like
when I started Simply Subarus, I knew Subi Smith was a local shop, and I started out of my home garage. So at a humble beginnings. Well, they're probably less than a mile away from my house. So I said, you know what? It behooved me to go down there, introduce myself, and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. So I introduced myself to Aaron, the owner. I said, hey, if you want to chase me out of your shop with the biggest wrench you have, I respect that. And he just looked at me and laughed, and he said, there's enough Subarus in Colorado for us to both do good work. And I was like, wow, I appreciate that comment. And years later, we're still good personal friends. And he humbly refers a lot of customers to our shop because there's certain things that they don't do, they don't specialize with.
And that's the sort of healthy discourse that shops and like you guys have developed a symbiotic relationship, which only helps the community. And people, it's interesting that you say that, because people will say that, tuners are so hush-hush about their, quote-unquote secrets or whatever. But, like, I'm in a couple different group chats where tuners will just, like well-known tuners will just post up, hey, I was working on a car and had this weird issue. I figured it out. If you guys ever see this, try this. It's just like, these are the things that benefit the community.
Yeah,
You're sharing.
And you know what? I would prefer a tuner that's in a group chat with other tuners and that are all trying to learn from each other than one who's like, I'm the best and just shuts himself off from everybody else, you know?
Yep.
I think
Literally nobody knows everything.
100%.
Yeah. So Shriver performance for me is my favorite topic ever because it is the pinnacle of what happens if you fuck around and find out and essentially call people out and cause problems in the car community. Tommy Schreiber, he did a lot of work with like eclipses and talent. He would constantly call out other shops, call out other drivers. He would say, you know, meet me at the racetrack. I'm putting down all this money. Anything you could imagine this guy would try to pull, he would. And then people would call him out on it, and then he would never show up, or the car was never ready, or when he did race, it would be some kind of weird thing where like the car broke or I'm not paying or whatever. And so, you know, he was running his own shop trying to like pull this kind of stuff. And somebody along the line was keeping track of all the comments, all the messages, everything that Tommy had ever written, everything that Tommy had ever said. And one day somebody realized that he missed a payment on his website domain and they bought it out from under him, and they turned his website into literally basically a Tommy website.
I'm on it right now. I clicked the link that you shared.
Yeah. So,
Oh my God.
so I'm actually going to open the link here. Put it out there.
His tribal tattoo is so cool. I'm a cool guy.
So here, I'll put it on the screen for you.
He's still in business or no?
So he is still in business. It's called the laughing stock of the DSM community. There's a song that plays, and basically it tells you all about Tommy, all the races he's been in, all the messages that Tommy's ever written, calling people out, the fake certificates that he's posted. It's just it goes on and on and on and on. If you are in the community and you think that calling out other shops and causing these problems and trying to race people and stuff, this could be you. You could be the guy that misses a payment on his website, and boom, next thing you know, you are under fire. Whoever stole it from him has been running it for like 6 years, just updating it and whatever. You know, a lot of people say that a dyno tune can make any setup safe, but I feel like that's not really the case. I feel like, you know, if a car is built poorly, it's a little bit like, you know, it somewhat has to do with what you can do with what you got, you know? So I was curious on your take on that.
Yeah, so a dyno tuner, tuning a car on a dyno is like realistically going to be a lot more stress on your powertrain and your drivetrain versus something like street tuning. Because if you think about it on a dyno, you're basically working against either like a large inertia roller like you would on a dyno jet, or against the loaded load cell like you would on a Mustang dyno. Effectively, you're driving the car up like a 45-degree incline road for this pull, you know, for lack of a better term. So you are going to be putting more load and more stress on both your powertrain and your drivetrain. Tuning is tuning. Whether you use a dyno or the street or your e-tuning, you're going to realistically come to the same end goal or the same conclusion. A dyno is nice because it's a controlled environment. You don't have to worry about imperfections in the road, traffic, you know, police, all of that stuff. I did a lot of street tuning back in the day. I wouldn't go back to it now. But yeah, it's, if anyone ever says like a dyno tuner, I hate the term like pro tune. It's literally just a term that Cobb has put into the Subaru community and other communities that essentially means that the tune is completed by someone who's a part of their pro tuner network. But any type of dyno tune is not going to be any more or less reliable than an e-tune or street tune or anything like that. The only argument I could see for a dyno tune being more reliable is like the actual tuner is there with your car. They're keeping a very close eye on all of the important things like your lambda, your wideband reading, your knock control system, all of that. realistically more attention will be paid than you would on your own car. So the ability for them to react to a potentially bad situation before it becomes a really bad situation is a lot better on a dyno. The way I tune, it's basically like a 3-step process. I'll take the car out on the road, I'll do drivability, and I'll do my very first, what I call a safety pull on the road. That way, if there's anything egregiously wrong with the car, we're going to identify it at low boost and low timing. And then, like, let's say something is really, really critically wrong with that car. I don't have to waste Trent's time or his team's time with strapping down the car, getting the fans set up, because we've already identified that it's not getting tuned today. And like you said, drivability is almost impossible to recreate real world scenarios on a dyno. A dyno for drivability purposes is really good for steady state tuning, which is essentially where you hold the car at a very specific engine load and a very specific engine speed or RPM for, a certain amount of time, something that would be very difficult to do on the road. On a dyno, you can basically hold half throttle if you have like eddy current brakes on your dyno or magnetic brakes. You can hold half throttle and prevent the vehicle from actually accelerating because the dyno is going to be working against you to hold you in place. So that allows you to kind of see exactly what's going on, let's say at 10 pounds of boost at 4,000 RPM. Versus on the street, if you're at 10 pounds of boost, you're going to pass 4,000 RPM pretty quickly.
What is your plan with all this electric stuff? Because, if the Impreza goes electric, right? Like where do you see everything going for you as far as like tuning?
That's a good question, because I personally don't think internal combustion is ever going to truly go away. At least not in like my lifetime. I'm 30 now, but yeah, I'm not in my lifetime, I don't think. With electric vehicles, there's still obviously going to be people who are in it for performance. There already are, like you guys were talking about with the Tesla Plaid and all that stuff. People get it because they like the performance, but I think realistically what a lot of these shops are going to be doing with these electric cars is, we're going to be seeing a whole lot more suspension and steering geometry upgrades, brake upgrades, weight reduction, because, it's not as easy as just saying, let's turn up the voltage and amperage and make this thing like fly. But I think a lot of the tuning world is gonna kind of come back to its roots, where tuning isn't just messing with air and fuel and spark, but it's it's the brakes, the suspension, the steering geometry, the weight, and all that stuff. You even have electric cars now that are like simulating the noises of different engines inside the cabin. So they're trying to scratch the itch that we inherently have for internal combustion. Yeah. So it just goes to show that we need it. And that's probably not really realistically going anywhere. To anyone who wants to modify a car, I would basically give the same advice that I was giving to someone who wanted to get into, let's say, tuning, for example, is like read, and read. The information is out there. When you read and you save this information, like I can't even tell you guys how many pages of documentation I have saved on my original computer when I was learning how to tune, just from NASIOC forums, IWSTI, all the people talking about tuning, what's been going right, what's been going wrong, etc. All of this information, when you understand the fundamentals besides what you're trying to achieve, it makes achieving your goal that much more not only easy, but satisfying. There's a lot of people who, and you see these posts all the time, I'm sure, where they're like, I just bought this car. It's fun, but I want to make it way faster. What do I do? That, in my opinion, is not the correct way to go about modifying a car. What I would do instead is I would peruse some of the forums, even Facebook groups. Like they have that awesome search feature where you can literally search up, let's say, boost controller. Yeah, like you can literally search up like best boost controller on Subaru Mechanics Facebook page, and there will be like hundreds of posts of people talking about like which boost controllers have worked for them, which ones they've liked, which ones they maybe haven't liked. You'll have tuners talking about their experiences with them. And from there, you can, maybe narrow it down to one or two options, and then, talk to whoever you want to be doing the tuning for your car and say, I'm between this and this. What do you recommend? At the same time, I don't recommend going to a shop and saying like, I want to go fast. What do I do? For the shop, that's great because, they're about to make a big sale. But for you, that sort of takes a lot of the fun and interest out of it. But yeah, that would be my advice is like, you need to read, you got to put in the little bit of effort.
Something that we ask everybody who comes on the show, this is your first time on, we've asked Teter before, but we have Dave's Baja at his shop that we have filled with canola oil. We are running it to see how long we can get it to go for.
You mean like filled the engine with canola oil or filled like
Yes.
We filled the engine with Crisco canola oil, and
it smells great.
Yeah. Well,
It does actually.
This came around because Dave and I early on did some research and found that old warships used to run on canola oil. So the viscosity of the canola oil is like equal to like a 520. So we were like, screw it. Like, we'll just throw it in, see what happens. So now I believe Dave just passed over like the 500-mile mark, and we're going to 3,000. So we're taking bets on how long until it explodes.
I mean, my only concern would be with like how it breaks down over time, like how it survives heat cycles. I mean, obviously, most of us have cooked with canola oil before, and it survives temperature pretty well. Like, it has a relatively high smoke point too, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, not as high as like avocado oil, but it's like up there.
Well, so canola oil, the boiling point is like 200 degrees. So I don't think it's ever going to reach that in the car. But
well, it should, right? Typically, oil temps get more or less to boiling temperature, just so you can boil any excess water out of the system.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, I don't really know how long this thing's gonna go. We just did it to see what would happen. And so far, dude, this is the crazy part. This is what I told Teter was the oil change with Crisco canola oil on a Baja is like $13. So if this works and the car can run it and it actually survives, you could have $13 oil changes.
So, and I'm sure Trent probably brought this up, but the biggest thing to do with something like that is like, let's say you get all 3,000 miles out of it, and I'm kind of an optimist. Like, I think it will. But you really have to like tear it down and kind of inspect like the bearings and all of that stuff to actually see like realistically what's happening. Like, is it getting where it's supposed to? Are these components getting lubricated? Is it too thin? Is it too thick? Is it breaking down? It might even be like engine braking oil, where you do that oil change at 3,000 miles and it comes out like water. So, yeah, I think it'll make it. I'm kind of an optimist. I think it will do 3,000 miles, and I think it'll smell amazing.
Yeah.
But I do think that you will definitely see some increased wear. And actually, what you should consider doing, I don't know if they would entertain it, but after that 3,000 miles or however long it makes it, you should send a sample over to Blackstone.
So
We're already doing it.
So yeah, we talked about it, and we're gonna do that and see what they say. If we're just not gonna say anything, we're just gonna send it. just
tell them and see what happens.
Yeah,
be like, I think you made a mistake. You're like, nah. He goes, no, we didn't.
Nah.
Be like, this is the oil that came out of a Baja with 200,000 miles on it.
What do you think? What do you think?
Just say customer states car smells weird. And then say the car.
So I'm gonna put you down for the 3,000 mark.
Yeah,
and
you're with me. You're with me. Yes, Clint.
It does.
Yes.
I hope it does. I can smell it already. It smells better than E85.
I tried to get Dave to let me drive it to Boxer Fest. It was going to be like 1,700 miles, but that would have been like the ultimate test of it's going to blow up.
Endurance.
Well, just make sure you got a backup car if you're doing that.
Yeah, we really appreciate meeting you at Boxer Fest and being able to have you on as a sponsor. I think that when it comes to tuning, we both agree that we wouldn't want to have somebody that we work with that doesn't have the pedigree that you do. And clearly, like I said, from the post, every post you make in Subaru Mechanics, the feedback is always positive, and there's a ton of people saying how much they love, the tunes that you put out. So
yeah, I appreciate you guys in the community for that. Yeah, a lot.
Teter, we appreciate you being on tonight, man. This was big for us. We love having you on, and I just wanted to say, we appreciate you giving us your time again. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate you guys, everything you do for me. So
thanks again, Clint. We will see you later.